Every week, millions of people move home, and as it's one of the most stressful things that you'll do in life, you need to get it right. I'm Rebecca Jane, and together with the region's best property experts, we'll be giving you some top tips and expert advice, shining a spotlight on a different area from across the Midlands, and getting to know a little more about our guests and what they look for in a home. Property is ever evolving and always a fascinating subject. We'll guide you on what you need to know and what you need to look out for here on Midlands at Home. On this week's show, we'll be focusing on location, the benefits of investing in a property in a prime location, what areas across the Midlands are up and coming, and what to look out for. My guest today is Matthew Moore from Edwards Moore, the estate agent. Hello, welcome back.
Hello again, how are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Excellent.
Big topic, it's always at the top of a lot of people's lists, location. Is it still, do you think, number one priority?
I think it's certainly number one priority where value in property is concerned. I seem to spend my entire life saying to people, you know, value is based on the three most important things, and that's location, location and location. So it is certainly the thing that drives the value of a property, in my opinion. As far as people buying, it is a very large priority, and an awful lot of people will buy in a specific location, and the house, the type of house, sometimes is irrelevant to a certain extent.
Yeah, I suppose it depends. There's a few different camps. There's those that aren't so bothered about the location. They want it to be right by school. They want it to be, say, easy access for work, wherever that may be. And then you've got the others that go, actually, I don't care whether I've got to travel. I don't mind distance, but I want this specific location. Yeah,
exactly. Where schools are concerned, a lot of people want to be within walking distance of the schools, particularly primary schools and what have you, and secondary schools, so that when the kids get to sort of 11, 12, 13, they can walk themselves to school, gives them that bit of independence. The transport networks are vitally important as well, of course, so people want to be within easy access to certain transport networks. But then there's plenty of people who just want a specific type of house. The area that I work has got a lot of 1960s properties, but you'll occasionally go to a really nice Victorian villa or something like that. And I'll say to the clients, you know, I think that somebody will come from further afield to buy this property because they'll be buying this property and not the location as such.
So that's the other side of things, of people falling in love with a particular home, so the location isn't so relevant. They're just, their heart's in it. They absolutely adore the type of property then.
Exactly. Or if it's got a decent plot of land or something along those lines, then obviously they're going for the land, and where it is secondary, if you like.
And I suppose really because, you know, you're investing in your home, so I suppose if you go for a fantastic location, it's a bit of a safe bet, perhaps.
Yes, definitely. I think you have to decide whether it's an investment or a home that you're going for. If it is a home, then location-wise, you're thinking about where the schools are. You're not thinking about resale value, whereas if you're buying a property for investment, so if you're buying it to make some improvements and sell it on, or you're buying it as a buy-to-let, then yes, perhaps location is slightly more important because you want it to be in the right place where it's not going to lose value because of what's going on around it, if you like.
And it's amazing when you, only from doing the whole moving process myself at the moment, that found a house, absolutely love it, but realised that by travelling 5 minutes on this one road to the next village, £70,000 was the saving. So it was £70,000 less. The square footage and the type of property was pretty much like for like, but the saving was £70,000. So it is amazing, the location. Both still a great location. I suppose the one that, you know, I've now fallen in love with is a little bit further out, but you think, well, actually, I think I'm prepared to travel 5 minutes and to save a lot of money. So it is incredible, the difference in price with location.
It is. And again, even in a fairly small area where I work, it can vary from street to street. So
really?
Hundreds of yards almost it can vary. But if it's the right road, people will pay that premium for it, of course, because they want to be in that road. It's the prestige of being in that road. And you take it to the nth degree, of course. bus and you go down into London, and they work all their prices out based on price per square foot.
Yes.
And you can almost put a price per square foot on each road as you go through. And again, postcodes down there are vitally important, and if it's got a 1 after the S, N or W, then you know it's going to be worth a fortune.
Oh, it's crazy, isn't it? Crazy world. I think that's why in London people do tend to convert their lofts and their basements, because then obviously more square footage, more money.
Exactly. Yeah,
exactly.
very much so.
So if we looked at the areas across the Midlands and we looked at, say we are fortunate to have a budget of 300,000, what would that get you in certain parts of the Midlands?
Well, again, it varies depending on location. Some areas are for workers who work in Birmingham, and so they're prepared to pay a premium because they've got ease of access to the rail network and things like that. Or you've got other areas which have got better schools, so more suitable for families. It does also depend on the housing stock in certain areas as well. You look at, say, the Jewellery Quarter, for instance, £300,000 will get you a really quite nice two-bedroom apartment, or two-bedroom duplex apartment, or a three-bedroom penthouse.
Yes.
But it hasn't got that much in the way of houses, so family homes, if you like, because obviously you're focusing on people who work in the city centre, fairly transient, mobile workforce to a certain extent. You go out to the suburbs a little bit, Acox Green, places like that, and you'll get an awful lot more for your money. You'll get a 4 or 5 bedroom semi-detached house, a 4-bedroom modern detached house, something that's a lot more substantial and a lot more family orientated. But then you go out a little bit further, so to Dorridge area or Knowle, and again, because it's more affluent, you're on the M42 corridor, you're getting a 2-bedroom semi-detached house for £300,000, but you've got the excellent schools, you've got the excellent transport networks.
That location.
Exactly. You're on the edge of the countryside in Warwickshire, of course, so you've got some beautiful villages around with some very good pubs, which would certainly increase the value as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, definitely. You can't beat a local pub.
Absolutely. So you've got different aspects to all locations.
Yeah. And I suppose if we look at schooling, because that's I know that's a big factor for me looking around at Ofsted schools, it seemed to be that as soon as you had an Ofsted school with a #1 rating, which is outstanding, instantly you looked at the price of property in the area and it really was reflected in that.
Yeah.
Do you find that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, the amount of time I've been doing it, I see fluctuations in the quality of schools, and
of course, because if it changes, I suppose the price of housing.
Exactly, and one school in one area will improve, so all of a sudden people start radiating towards that school, and then back again to a certain extent. But I think the importance of school catchment areas is reflected when companies such as Rightmove and what have you actually produce a school catchment area checker.
It's amazing what's on offer, really, don't you think? As a buyer, you can do all of these searches. You can look at your area, you can look at schooling, you can look at what's around. You can do so much research now for when you're looking to move.
Well, people will really make a decision before they buy, before they even go through the door of a property, and they'll look at school catchment areas, they'll look at the crime rating in an area, they'll look at the flood risks, all of these things.
Did we have that years ago? I mean, was this something... Because I suppose back in the day, I remember my mum saying that it didn't really worry so much about schooling. All schools were good. You just went to your local school. There wasn't the whole business nowadays of checking Ofsted reports and looking at how different schools are. Do you think it's just really changed?
I think it has. I think, when you bring in a league table system for schools, then people are going to use it, of course. Yeah. So whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But it certainly affects the housing in certain areas. And no, I think, again, my parents certainly had no thought about that when they moved. It was just, well, we'll move here, and that's the local school, so that's where the kids will go to, and, away you go. Whereas now people are a lot more conscious about giving their children as good a start as they possibly can do, which is, that's just the way people are, I suppose. Yeah,
definitely. Do you find your clients, when they come in, so we've spoken about location, do you find that some people are very much, I live in this house, in this road, so they're really, really specific? I mean, I heard a story once, you see, from an agent that said that they'd had somebody on the books, they wanted this house, certain location, it came on, they said, right, I've got your dream home, and they said, no, I've changed my mind. Do you find people do change their mind quite a lot?
Definitely.
Yeah.
You always say that people have got a tick list, and, they definitely want A, B and C on that tick list, otherwise they're not prepared to buy. And again, I think pre-internet age, estate agents had slightly more influence, and I get people now who I sold to a few years ago, and they will say to me, I would have bought this house unless I'd have come and spoken to you about it, because it didn't have B and C.
Yeah.
But when I came to see you, you said, well, it hasn't got B and C, but it's got A, but it's also got X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
So it really ought to be worth it. So you're losing that, but you're actually gaining that. And they've gone and seen it, and it's perfect for us. So people will change based on what's available, if you like. Whereas now with the internet, I think everybody's got those criteria in their mind, and they're almost saying, well, I'm not prepared to change what I want, if you like, and they're not able to talk to an estate agent who might be able to say to them, well, just go and have a look, because it might be worth your while, because although it's not got this, it has got the other.
Yeah, it's having an open mind, isn't it? Because like you said, sometimes you're fixated with, no, I want this, this and this, and then you go and have a look, and floor plans are great, aren't they? Because you can look and go, okay, well, it's got a tiny kitchen, but that wall goes onto the kitchen wall, so actually, as long as it's not listed, we can knock that out, put it in our estate and do so much more. So you're with us after the break. We are going to be looking at some of the most expensive areas in the Midlands, and also up-and-coming areas as well, plus this week's Spotlight area. See you in a few minutes. This week's Spotlight area is Kings Heath. Kings Heath is a suburb of Birmingham, around 5 miles south of the city centre. It is also the next suburb south from Moseley, with its touch of bohemian slowly drifting across. Kings Heath first became a village in the 18th century, with the improvements to the Alcester to Birmingham Road acting as a catalyst for new houses and farms. Before this, the area was largely uninhabited wasteland. The streets running off High Street are dominated by pre-1919 terraced, owner-occupied housing. And on the High Street itself, you'll find plenty of takeaways, a few shops, and estate agents. You'll also find the library, dated 1905, and what used to be an old cinema and bingo hall that was built in 1920, but sadly got gutted by a fire in 2011. Property in the area varies from older character, some beautiful late Victorian properties, through to new builds. The locals still refer to Kings Heath as a village, even though it has been part of Birmingham for over a century. So it's clear to see that Kings Heath is still a firm favourite with the locals. Another great location in the Midlands. Now, on this week's show, we're talking all about location. Another really important factor, I think, with location is up-and-coming areas, but it's how to spot them, isn't it?
Absolutely. There's all sorts of things that make areas up and coming, and I think a lot of it's down to the local authority or local planning regimes as to whether local authorities are looking to push an area onto a certain extent.
And to invest in that area, I suppose, and improve it. And
exactly, improve the infrastructure, improve the facilities and the amenities and what have you.
And can you find that out? Can you go along to local authorities, find out what's going on in areas in order to look?
Absolutely. A lot of areas will have a bigger picture, and again, if you look on the websites and what have you, you'll certainly get a feel for that, or go and talk to them, really. Again, I think a lot of it is you can find out through word of mouth as well, of course, speaking to people. And
you can see it for you. I mean, really, I suppose you want to capture it before it all starts, because that's when you can, I suppose, maybe invest quite well. And you do hear these stories, don't you, of people who have bought very well in an up-and-coming area, sold it further down the lane and made a really good profit.
Absolutely. I think sometimes that's more by luck than judgment.
Yeah, maybe.
And, there are some towns that can certainly talk the talk, but when it comes to attracting investment to improve that infrastructure, it's sometimes a little bit difficult and can take a little bit longer, and
Very true.
It's one of those things. I think if you're looking to invest, if you're looking to invest from a buy-to-let point of view, you look at things like transport networks, location to amenities and what have you.
Is location as important on a buy-to-let, or have you got to try not to be led with your heart and just look at actually what you're going to get for your rental per calendar month, as opposed to falling in love with the location, because you're not going to be living in it?
Well, I think location pushes the yield to a certain extent as well. So, the better the area, the more people will pay for on a monthly basis. So it works both ways, really, in that respect. You're more likely to buy with your head than your heart if you're buying a buy-to-let, of course, and the yield is vitally important. But go back to a previous programme, and again, you know, there's the two aspects of a buy-to-let, which is the yield and the capital growth, of course. So, you know, the yield is the income that you'll get. The capital growth is how much the property price increases. So both of them can certainly be affected by location, because it's all about the demand for each aspect as such.
Yeah, of course. So I suppose if we're looking at up-and-coming areas, whether you're going to get an investment as a buy-to-let, whether you're going to buy for yourself, what, in your opinion, what do you think in the Midlands is up-and-coming?
I mean, I look in the north of our region, if you like. I work in Walsall, live in Lichfield. I was fortunate when I bought in Lichfield 12 years ago. The prices have performed really well because it's quite a small city. It's got a direct rail link straight into the city centre of Birmingham. And I look around there at the moment, and there's an awful lot of plans for development, places like Tamworth, Burntwood, where there's going to be a lot of infrastructure being put in and increasing in housing. So certainly a good option as far as that's concerned, because you're still very convenient, but you're a little bit out of the way as well, which I think people like to do.
Yeah, you get the best of both worlds, don't you then?
Exactly. But saying that, you know, you look at price trends in the area, and over the last 12 months, I think in the West Midlands, house prices have increased, according to the Land Registry, somewhere in the region of 3.2% across the region. But somewhere like Wolverhampton has increased over 8% over the last 12 months. And Wolverhampton wouldn't necessarily be one of the more sexy areas, if you like, for investors to think of.
Yeah.
But you know, it's performing really well. So a lot of that comes from the fact that the prices had been quite modest as the market emerged from a poor period, and it took a little bit longer for the prices to move on, and they've moved on really well now. So if you'd bought 12 months ago, you'd have got it at a bargain price, and you'd certainly see an improvement on your investments.
And it just seemed to be that houses have picked up. You know, when you look on the portals and you see the price of the house, you think, oh, it's a little bit more than perhaps last year. So I think the market does seem to be picking up.
It is, definitely. There's still a supply and demand issue, so there's still not enough properties available. We're still not seeing the builders increase their productivity quite enough just yet, but it's certainly getting there. So there's an awful lot of people who do want to move, but who aren't able to move because the right property isn't available yet.
And I think they just get scared, don't they? Think, well, I haven't got anything to go to. There's no point in putting it on the market. They're scared of getting it wrong, and
exactly. So it just thwarts the market from both sides.
Yeah.
So you know, there's nothing for the first-time buyers to go for, and upwards as such.
So what advice would you give then? I mean, looking at location, I suppose, which is what we're focusing on. If you've got somebody coming into your office looking, what advice would you give to them?
Buy in my area.
Exactly, you can't go wrong. Oh, Wolverhampton,
absolutely,
as we've learned today. There we go. It's a surprise, isn't it?
It is. It surprised me, I have to say.
Yeah, definitely. So what else, you know, if you've got somebody coming in and would you say, yes, this location is great, but look also, to keep an open mind and to look at other areas as well with location?
I think so. I think people they know what they need. If the kids are at certain schools, if the family live in a certain area, they know what they need and what they don't need. And unfortunately, buyers can't be all that choosy at the moment because, as I say, there's a lack of stock. So if they're having to move, they've almost got to take what's out there to a certain extent.
Or go into rented and...
Or go into rented, that's right.
Which what I've done at the moment, you know, long process, and you think you found somewhere and then it kind of falls through, and it's not an easy process, but I think you've got to kind of hang on in there, because I think if you want to move, you will move, and you've got to be patient sometimes to find the right place.
If it means you get the dream property, then it's worthwhile spending the money on a rental property, of course, and it just bridges a gap for a period of time. And it's a lot easier now, I think, with a lot more availability of storage, so you can store your items easily for a fairly short period of time and what have you, and you can take out a 6-month rental. And a lot of people think 6 months is a long time, but in the greater scheme of things, where it comes to moving house, it's not all that long.
Is it really? No,
it isn't.
What about land then? You know, we've talked about location. What if you kind of want to go down the whole self-build route? How do you look into that?
You have to find yourself a plot of land, first of all, which is very difficult.
It does seem to... Is it harder nowadays to find a bit of land as to what it was 10, 20 years ago?
I think it is. A lot of the builders going back pre-2007, a lot of the builders bought land and they've kept them in their land banks.
Oh, OK.
And they're now starting to use those land banks as the prices start to pick up, and they see it as being cost effective for them to develop that land bank. So we're seeing that the developers hold on to that land, really. which does make it awkward to a certain extent. I certainly know that the planners have changed their attitude towards development, and depending on where you are, I think you'll start seeing land freeing up to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But it's just dropping on the right piece of land, of course.
It just seems to be so difficult to do. I think you did hear more people doing self-builds. Now it tends to be people who've got that larger plot, and maybe they'll build in the back garden and then knock down the home, or sort of, knock down the home, have the little porter cabin to the side, or caravan or something. But it does seem to be quite hard to get that bit of land. Again, if you find the location and you've got the land, you think, well, that's another option. But
yeah. And the problem is as well, because there's more and more people who want to do it because they want to live the dream in that respect, of course. That pushes the prices up as well, because there's certain people are prepared to pay that bit extra to make sure they get it. So, it's supply and demand, it really is.
Finally, the most expensive areas then, the most sought after areas in the Midlands, what would you say they are?
I think there's obviously a number of parts of Solihull which are extremely expensive. You've got the city centre, of course, Birmingham City Centre.
And with all the redevelopment, talking about development, they're doing so much, aren't they? New Street Station, John Lewis opening soon. So
looks
there's
fantastic,
a lot
it really does. Looks very nice.
Yeah.
Then you've got parts of Sutton Coldfield, Little Aston, Four Oaks Park. And then you've got the outlying area, which you've got more land, of course.
Yeah.
So there's different pockets in all over the place, and it just depends what you're looking for, really.
That's it. And I think if you get your location right, for whatever that reason may be, it is all still very much, I think, about location.
It is. Good time to move though at the moment still.
Yeah.
You find the right place.
Absolutely. So it's just a matter of, I think, being patient, looking, having a good estate agent that can sort of guide you through different locations and advise you. And I think looking perhaps at a certain radius that might suit you to wherever you work or where the children go to school, and just having a bit of an open mind, as it's
and trust to fate as well.
Yeah, very true. I always say if it's meant to be, then it will be.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us.
That's a pleasure.
And we will see you soon.
Excellent.
I look forward to seeing you next week for lots more on Midlands at Home. You take care, and I'll see you then.